Oh, boys. It's our Tuesday, the newest addition to the WTBS show. Roland came up with this idea, and it's a big fucking hit, bro. The waiver wire sit down on Tuesdays. Boys, first of all, how you doing? Second of all, how was your fantasy week? And third of all, we got three players for our waiver wires that you must add. Talk to me. Talk
It
to me.
was
How's
it
your
was
week
one of
been?
those it was one of those weeks where I'm just immediately looking to the future because it just didn't go well for me
Come
like
on.
in any regard. I mean, betting wise did okay, not so much. Fantasy wise, lost pretty much every matchup I had this week. Ran into some high scores. Didn't perform so well in some other leagues, and then had some injuries. We're going to talk about that here pretty
Oof.
soon.
Yes.
And
Big
then
injuries.
Ron, our Cowboys.
Oh.
I mean, right in front of everybody. I mean, they're always playing in front of America, but it was prime time, NBC, only game on at the time, and they get the breaks beat off of them,
Yeah.
42-10.
It
I
was dirty,
stopped
bro.
watching.
It was embarrassing. I turned on Netflix. It was like halftime, and I text Ben, I texted Chad, I text you guys. I was like, give me a good Netflix series because it's Sunday night, and I don't want to waste it watching the damn Cowboys get spanked, bro, throttled. But Ben, how did your team favor this week? Because ours, I mean, you already
Yeah,
know.
it wasn't good either. They went across the pond and they had the game over there in London, Tottenham Stadium. So the big thing was the Bills flew out there on Friday, so they got there 2 days before the game. As we know, the Jaguars had back-to-back games over there, so they were out there for 2 weeks. It definitely looked like it. Nasty game. Right after we start talking about Josh Allen being the MVP favorite,
Yeah.
goes out, puts up a stinker. For fantasy, it was okay, 27 points. But yeah, man, last week was something to forget. On to this week. Same for
Let's do
fantasy.
it.
A couple good, good sightings from some of my teams, but for the most part, fantasy was a dud last week.
Wow, so not so great for everybody across the board, but let's get into it because week 5 is done, boys. Week 5 is done. This is week 6, and we have De Mercado. He is the Arizona running back as our featured waiver wire pickup. Before we get into him and the rest of ours, let's just recap last week because we kind of hit it out of the park. No, last week. How do you feel about our picks last week? There they
Last
are.
week, I thought the picks were pretty good. 3 out of 5. You came through on Thursday night with those two picks with Howell and Logan Thomas. I like that part of the bye week
Thank you,
blues
thank
for
you.
some of those quarterbacks that were out. So if you streamed Howell early, you hit on him. And then the main guy, the hot name last week was Jaleel McLaughlin. We had him up there. Came through with 17 points as a starter for the Denver Broncos against the Jets last week. Although I do hear Javonte Williams is back at practice, he did go off this past
No
week. So I
bueno.
thought it was a good sighting for the waiver wire last week.
Yeah, we did. So, like you mentioned, 24 and 20 for the Commanders, but Kamaka was 17. Ben, did you start Dobbs or JMO in any of your leagues? Because I think I don't know if they both had 8. I thought one of them had 6 or 2 actually. I think JMO actually had 2. That's my fault, guys. I think he only had 2 points, and Dobbs had 8. Dobbs had 8. Did you
Yeah,
touch anybody here, Ben, or
I
no?
did with Herbert having the bye. I ended up streaming Dobbs. I missed out on the Thursday and Sam Howell, but Dobbs was sitting at 14 points at halftime,
Mhm.
looking decent, and in the second half he came out and just total stinker. Gifted the Bengals points. The Bengals, Joe Burrow had his bounce back, but yeah, Dobbs had 2 interceptions in the second half, so he ended up losing points in the second half instead of getting more. I thought that he was going to be in line for a 20-point game, man, but yeah, wasn't a good streamer for the first, bye week blues for me.
Got you. So we went 3 out of 5 last week, but like I said, that's week 5. Let's get into the bye week blues, the injuries, and then we'll wrap it up with this week.
Yeah, bye week blues. Not so many teams to talk about this week, but there's still a few fantasy relevant players on each team.
True.
Packers and Steelers both out, so a light week this week. Any guys that you want to point out on each team, Ron and Ben?
Shit, I was playing Watson last night, and I thought he was gonna go off, and he had the opportunity to. Just Jordan Love missed him. So if you waited for him to come back from injury, you start him. He's on the come up. His stock is going up, and then boom, you get hit with a buy. So that's probably a player that is rostered in. What do you guys think? 70, 80%, maybe 90%?
What do you
Yeah,
think, Ben?
I'd say he's rostered in about that percentage of leagues, but getting back to the bye weeks. We have Najee here pictured on the screen.
Yeah, I
You
put
know,
him there because
so based on these teams, there's probably one or two players that maybe you start. You know, Pickens kind of finding his way into a flex zone, just the way they're having to force feed him the ball but the offense is just so untrustworthy. And then on the Packers side, Aaron Jones has been injured, but Aaron Jones is an auto start any week that he is healthy for the most part, just based off where people drafted him and what's expected. So yeah, I would say just mainly those two players are who you're missing out on. Yeah, good bye week for the most part. Good bye week. Shouldn't be any big players out.
Yeah, not too much carnage out there for these teams this week. So most people should be in good positions. Let's get to the injury report, though. This is a little early. Tuesday night injury report. As you know, there's always carnage throughout the season. Guys go down, and this week was no different. There were some big names on the list. Ron and Ben, obviously, Jefferson pops out at you. What are your takeaways? Are you guys personally affected by this? And if you have these guys, what are you thinking on your teams?
I'll go first because I have none of these guys on my roster, like at all. I didn't even pick them up. Well, I didn't get to pick them up. So this for me is a 0 right here. Obviously, these are all starters, clearly. So you have guys on this list plus the bye, you're in some deep waters in week 6. But I'll leave it to you guys because I don't have any of these guys on my roster.
Yeah, I also don't have any of these guys on my roster.
Yeah.
Wasn't lucky enough to get the first round pick and draft Justin Jefferson, the first overall pick. But what I will say is he's the only one that has been for sure put on the IR, from what I know. With A-Chain, there has been conflicting reports. What I know, Roland, you're an A-Chain owner. I want to know how you feel as an A-Chain owner. Do you want him to sit and just be healthy and not even have to worry about putting him in your lineup? Or do you want the Dolphins, to throw him out there and maybe risk something a little more serious going down the line?
No, never want to risk further injury, but I definitely would like to see him stay off the IR. Like they keep him like in a week-to-week situation, kind of manage how he's doing, like sit him this week, see how he does throughout practice, and then suit him up the next week. Because I say that because with the IR, and you said there's Jefferson is on there. Connor, I also saw, is for sure on the IR. So Connor's for sure out 4 weeks. Jefferson's out 4 weeks. If A-Chain's out 4 weeks, he's part of that group of teams that have a week 10 bye. So we're 5 week 6. They put him on the IR. We might not see A-Chain again until week 12. What I'm talking about? Week 11, week 12, week 13, maybe,
bro. Playoffs.
So I definitely, as a A-Chain owner, would like to see him off of the IR. And they haven't put him on there. They haven't rushed to put him on there. Maybe they're getting second opinions, or they truly do think that they can manage this on a week-to-week basis. But as an A-Chain owner, to answer your question, Ben, I don't want them just to throw him out there like if he's like hampered out there. Ryan, get out of here. But
hey.
I just want to keep him off the IR. Keep him off the IR.
I got you.
Trying to take me out.
Jeez.
Yeah, it sounds like Roland had a bad week because I got a good one in on Roland this week too. But what I will say is, remember a couple of weeks ago in the comments, the question about Mostert had come up also, and we said no, Mostert hasn't done anything just yet to lose his job. I mean, if you're a Mostert owner, this puts him back into top contention,
For
right?
sure.
If A-Chain does go into the IR, they have a matchup against Carolina this week, and you'd expect for Mostert to at least get in the end zone one time. So although this does hurt the A-Chain owners a lot, those people who did have Mostert and maybe thought, I can't start him anymore because of this new young rookie, he's back. We're back.
And I think this is maybe fantasy owners, one of their favorite stashes of all time. He's been on the IR. Jeff Wilson, they're thinking they're going to activate
you and Ryan.
him. So
you and Ryan just said the same thing.
Yeah, Jeff Wilson, he's going to be activated from the IR. going to be the backup. We all know Jeff Wilson does have talent. He is capable when he gets the opportunity. So he might come in there. We don't have him listed as a waiver wire pickup, but his ownership percentage is pretty low the last time that I checked. So another guy you can get out there for this hand injury. So just muddies the water. Hopefully no IR though. Connor also out 4 weeks. We're going to talk about his replacement. But yeah, big names out, as we all know. Injuries are a name of the game in the NFL. So hopefully not too many guys go down. Any more on this slide before we get to these waiver wires?
If you have a player that's on the Dolphins, you're putting them in your roster because that offense is just insane right now.
So you would put in Jeff Wilson if activated from IR if you're in a spot?
If I don't hear anything like pitch count or a limited workload and I'm desperate for a running back, dude, throw him in there. Why not?
Yeah, for sure.
Honestly, why not? I mean, he can maybe catch a pass out of the backfield in garbage time and give you a tutty. Shit, why not? A tutty, not a tuggy.
Hey,
and why not?
What I will say is now with the buys and now injuries as well, it might be time to just, if you have a roster spot, you're wasting it on maybe an extra tight end or an extra QB and yours already at his buy, go and handcuff somebody, right? We're going to talk about some guys on the waiver wire, but maybe if people drop Tank Bigsby, some of these players, just go and grab some handcuffs. That way you're not scrambling on waiver wire day. It's kind of still the season where you kind of got to start prepping for the future.
Speaking of Tank Bigsby, him and Kyle Pitts were on our list of cuts last week, and Kyle Pitts throws down 15.
Yeah, we did say hold the brakes on Kyle Pitts because he might get a QB change. But yeah, Kyle Pitts played really well finally.
Ritter played pretty good. He had like over 300 yards passing, so that was pretty interesting.
Facts.
I like it. So all right, well, the number one pick, man.
Ryan looks like he's in a spot. He says he's got Aaron Jones hurt and on bye. His others are Zeke and Dalvin Cook. Yeah, I would take a flyer on Wilson at that point because Dalvin Cook, it's proven. Breece Hall is the guy in New York, and there's no questions there. And Zeke, I mean, I don't want any part of that New England offense. So I'm right there with you, Ryan. Good luck.
In that scenario, that's as desperate as it gets right there. So, yeah, that's where Jeff Wilson and maybe his 7 points are definitely going to be better than Zeke and Dalvin Cook.
Oh, shit. Who knows? He finds a way into the end zone because the Dolphins are just there all the time, right?
Facts.
Exactly. Yeah. Him or two of the guys that we have on this list. So
yeah, let's get to it, right?
Yeah, let's get to it. Yeah. We talked about these guys already, the guys from last week. Let's get to it. Another receiver. He's going to be one of the direct beneficiaries of Justin Jefferson's injury this past week. He's on the IR. We got also Addison, but it's KJ Osborne. He's here. He's pictured. He's a longtime slot receiver. He was always the number 3 guy behind Thielen and whoever they had on the other side, Jefferson or Stephon Diggs. I don't know how long KJ Osborne has been there, but he's been the number 3 guy for the most part. Week 5 versus KC with Jefferson. Once he gets out of the game, he has 5 catches for 50 yards pretty much on 9 targets, 10 PPR points. He did get tackled inside the 5, which turned into an Addison touchdown right afterwards, if I remember correctly. So he could have had anywhere like from 16 to 17 points last week. He's got a good matchup against Chicago with 13 PPR points, and he's got about projected for 13 PPR points, and he's about 22% owned. Ron and Ben, we talk about, and we talked about it with the running backs, how we look for guys on the waiver that have a direct line to the starters, snap count or whatever you will. KJ Osborne fits that build. Are you spending fab on him, or are you going with a good percentage of your fab if you need a receiver here?
Take it, man.
Personally, I wouldn't. When I think of KJ Osborne, I kind of think of Palmer from the Chargers. That guy that comes in when Mike Will is injured. He knows the offense, like you mentioned. He's been there, longer than Addison. I do want to talk a little bit about Addison after we finish with KJ Osborne. But honestly, Roland, the Vikings, their offense has been decent this season. They're not a very good team, but receiver, I feel is pretty easy to pick up on. And I'm just not – I don't know if I'm spending fab on somebody like KJ Osborne. His ceiling isn't too high to me, to be honest.
Yeah, I think he's, if anything, what he'll turn into throughout the year is like a bye week flex guy once these bye weeks start hitting after this week, there's only 2 teams to talk about. I think he's going to be a viable flex guy pretty much every week, just because as long as Justin Jefferson's out, the way that they play, he's going to have a lot of opportunity. Those 9 targets, I don't want to be too confident, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be consistent, at least for these next 4 weeks without Justin Jefferson there. And that's the 9 targets, and Justin Jefferson played a little bit of this game before he got hurt. So I think KJ Osborne does have a little bit to spend on or to expand on. But to your point, receiver, fab, if you can get him on the cheap, possibly, or if you're really desperate, I mean, depends on what you're looking at, but I wouldn't break the bank on this guy. I look at him like, kind of like the receivers in LA that benefited from Cup being out, right? Like Tutu Atwell type level. So that's kind of what I see for KJ Osborne. Can be productive, but I'm not breaking the bank for this guy in terms of fab. Ron, you've been quiet here. Do you like him as a flex option going forward?
This is one of Ron's guys, bro. This is one of Ron's guys.
I drafted this dude, bro. I drafted him for
so you're one of the
like
22% that has him.
I'm like, you know me in drafting, boys. I'm always all over it. The way
for better or worse,
the way that the Minnesota offense is this year, though, has me putting the brakes on him a little bit.
That's a great point.
Just because Hawkinson is there now, and I think Hawkinson is probably going to be the main benefactor of Jetta's being out. I think that Addison with the T and with the D, both of them have stepped up a little bit more than maybe what people would have thought. So if those guys aren't there and aren't playing well, then I could see KJ Osborne being like, oh, he's new. He's going to get all the target looks. Kirk Cousins is going to look for him. But now that Cousins is like, hey, my running back ain't bad. I have this, other young receiver who's good too. Plus, my number one guy that I'm focusing on is probably Hawk. KJ Osborne, I think, is still going to play second to third fiddle to those guys. And that off. I mean, if it's last year, don't get me wrong. I mean, this guy's in my lineup, but we've seen them lose a lot of games, not score as many points as last year. So I don't mind him on my squad. I don't mind starting him if I have to, but I wouldn't break the bank on fab for this guy.
Good point.
Guys, I'll just ask real quick and then we'll leave this, but is Addison an auto start now with Jefferson out? I know before maybe he was like a flex option. Maybe you weren't playing him some weeks. Is he just an auto start now?
I think he has the potential to be like a consistent wide receiver too. I still think there's some teams out there where you might have 3 receivers that you still like better than Addison, just because you haven't seen the production so far. Although he has had some spots, he scored a couple touchdowns already this year. I don't know if he's auto start, but he has the opportunity to for sure place himself there. If the talent is there, he's for sure going to have the opportunity with no Justin Jefferson. They're going to look to him. He's a first-round draft pick. He could be a league winner if he goes off, But to Ron's point, this team is one that's teetering on blow it all up. And, I don't want to spend too much time talking about that, but it does deserve a little, conversation because the Vikings, as we all know, last year, they were the cardiac kids. They were undefeated in 1-score games. This year, they've lost nothing but 1-score games. Their record, I think they're 1-4. They're all 1-score games that they've lost. This can get bad really quick for the team. I don't.
That's exactly what your brother just said.
Yeah, and my brother said that. Ron said that. That does give me a little bit of pause about making this guy an auto start and breaking the bank on a guy like KJ Osborne. What happens if they do end up pulling the trade on Kirk Cousins that everybody can't stop talking about? It is just a myth at this point and smoke and mirrors probably. Yeah. But I mean, who's to say that, Justin Jefferson also, he's going to be 4 weeks out. What if he gets back and they're like 2-8 or 2-10 or something like that, something really bad? What do they decide to hold him out the rest of the year? Kirk Cousins no longer there. I don't know. Yeah. Minnesota's
there's just too many elements for you to put this guy in your lineup, much less
just automatically. Yeah, I guess just automatically for Addison. But I do expect to find out if he's the truth or not with Jefferson out. I would expect them to, put him more in the game plan and try and get him different looks because he's shifty, he's fast, he's agile. He's a playmaker. So I want to see them, kind of force feed him the ball with Jefferson now.
You want to get to this question before we move on? Got a question from Josh. And shout out to everybody that's in the chat. Shout out to everybody that's
for sure. Shout out to Easy. He just sent us some stars, bro. I don't think anybody's ever sent us stars before on Facebook Live. It's just like a little donation, toward the pod, and we appreciate that very much. So thank you for that, Easy. Josh is here. We're gonna answer your question. Mark is in here too. Mark Signs, what's up, boys? He's Martin's brother. Martin's a real big Lions fan. And I've seen some new faces in here. Ty, what's up, Ty? Ryan's in here as well. I saw somebody else too who I didn't recognize. So thank you for watching. If it's your first time, welcome.
Welcome.
But yeah, let's get to the question.
Yeah, let's get to the question here. Josh, on his PPR Fantasy Survivors League, he said the team that lost. And do you guys know what Survivors League is?
Yes.
Well, for people in the chat that don't know, or for people that are watching Survivors League, I think it's pretty much a team gets eliminated each week that loses, and these players go to the free agency pool, and you have a chance to pick them up. If I've described that wrong, somebody please correct me. Ben, is that about it?
No,
generally?
That's right. Yeah, that's
right. So Josh is in one of these leagues. He says the team that lost, or the low scoring team rather, is the one that loses their
there you go.
their players. The team that lost dropped AJ Brown and Tyreek Hill this week. Which should I go for to keep the scoring high and alive for the rest of the year?
Cheetah, bro.
And Ron, you guys answer, and I'll give my answer.
Yeah, I have both. Cheetah. I have both of these guys on several of my teams, and it's got to be Tyreek. I know AJ Brown has gone crazy lately, and we've seen a drop off in Waddle, and likewise in Philly with Devonta Smith. Right after AJ threw that fit. But it's got to be Tyreek Hill. I think Tyreek's the best wide receiver in the league. So if you have first pick of the two, you got to go Tyreek Hill. I mean, it's a possible. He's CMC at wide receiver, bro. It's a possible 30-piece every week. So you got to love it.
But before we get to you, Roland, everybody in the chat, if you can help out Josh, because I know some guys watch the show, but they don't have the chat box on. So if you guys can help Josh in the chat, thank you, Mark, for answering his question. It's basically, would you do Cheetah or AJ Brown? So drop that in the chat. Appreciate it. But go ahead, Roland.
Shoot, I think Ben honestly hit on all the key points as far as like AJ Brown's recent bursts. After that sideline, snafu with Jalen Hurts, and what you get out of Tyreek Hill each week. I love me some Tyreek Hill. I'm going to pick Tyreek Hill here. I do have these guys on different rosters. So I'm still taking Tyreek Hill here. He's on the best offense in the NFL. He's going to have an opportunity to be a part of an offense that scores, 35 to 42 every week. So that's 5 to 6 touchdowns. He's the best player on the team. There's a good chance he's going to be one of those 6 touchdowns every week, or 5 touchdowns, or maybe 3 of them like he has already been, or 2 this year with multiple touchdown games. So give me Tyreek Hill all day. Although they're both great players.
With the offense with the most yards in the league. But so let's move over. Yep. We Osborne was our first one. Who do we got second? This might help somebody because somebody needed a running back.
Yeah, this is a second guy. This is more also like if you're in a pinch, you got some injuries, you got bye weeks coming up, because this is Ty Spears. Tyjae Spears is his full name. He's Derrick Henry's backup over in Tennessee. Week 4, he got a little bit more involved. 5 carries, 40 rush yards. 3 catches, 18 receiving yards on 4 targets. He is the receiving back. It is important to note on this offense. Week 5 against Indy, if anybody watched that game, it was pretty wild, back and forth. Tennessee had multiple chances to win, but nonetheless, they were kind of playing from behind. He had 7 carries, 34 yards for a touchdown on a nice little reverse play, and then 4 catches on 5 targets for 35 yards. Ends up with about 17 PPR points, and this week, he's projected for 9 PPR points. You might say, hey, that's not a lot, but to me, what that says is that ESPN or whoever's projecting this out still expects him to be a part of the offense enough to log 10 PPR points with Derrick Henry as a starter. To me, that says that he's involved a little bit more in the offense than he has been in past years. So in terms of fab, if you can sneak him in on the low, I think he's a good addition to have for the rest of the year. Who knows what might happen to Derrick Henry? I don't want to wish injury because I love Derrick Henry. I think the NFL is great with him. I love to see him stiff arm people. But who knows what might happen? And he's going to be the guy that steps up right into that situation. So I think Ty Spears is a nice little add. And you guys got anything to add, Ben?
No, this kind of goes into what I was saying. Like maybe you want to start handcuffing some guys, and this is a guy that you've seen some value while Derrick Henry has been healthy, right? So if you're in a deeper league or if you're a Derrick Henry owner, I understand going and getting him. I think that if you're just you need a running back, I think there is some better options than him. If you want, maybe more carries, more volume out there. We're going to talk about one, but there's some others that we'll mention. But for PPR leagues, I mean, it's good. You said 3 receptions, and it's a change of pace from Derrick Henry. You know what I mean? Like Derrick Henry brings that tough running inside the tackles, and then they bring in Spears for that outside the tackle, change of speed. So, getting those, what was it, 50 yards, 40 yards?
Yeah.
5 carries, I mean, that shows the pop. So, yeah, in deeper leagues or Derrick Henry owners, I would advise going and getting Spears.
For sure. Definitely a nice little sneaky ad if you can get him, if he's not already rostered. Only 26%, and this is on ESPN, these numbers. So let's get on to the last guy. This guy, he has his college jersey on. He's Eli Amari.
Dude, I couldn't find. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Ahead.
I couldn't find a picture of this dude, bro. Like, I go to Google and search his name. Even if you type like NFL Cardinals, it's like a picture of him in like a red jersey that you can only see up to right here. And then there's one with him and like James Conner and like super blur. It's nobody knows who this dude is, bro.
It's a good picture.
Like not even Google knows.
Got him smiling. Got him showing the little bling. I like it. Part of the Final Four TCU championship run. He was Kendre Miller's spell running back while at TCU. Kendre the backup over there in New Orleans. But DeMarcado showed pop in college. Showed that he had some juice. Ends up over here in Arizona. He won the backup job behind James Conner. Not pictured here, but week 4, he had about like 3 or 4 catches. So it showed that he was already kind of getting involved in the passing game. Week 5, James Conner goes down, 10 carries, 45 yards on a touchdown, 1 catch on 3 targets for 12 yards receiving. Ended up with about 13 PPR points. This next week, he's going up against the Rams, 10 points projected. He's automatically going to be the starter. Granted, that is for the Cardinals, although they have been better than what we thought they were going to be going into the preseason. Still on the Arizona Cardinals, but he is going to be the starter for the next 4 weeks. If you guys need a running back, is this a situation where you're spending a good part of your fab to get a starter on your team?
He's got the Rams, the Seahawks, the Ravens, and the Browns as the next 4 games. So with Connor going on the IR, those are the 4 that are there. The Rams and the Seahawks, I don't know if you really want to start him against the Ravens and the Browns. We've been talking about the Browns defense, being pretty scary over in the AFC. But for me, there's some leagues where it's not fab related, and I'm first on the waiver priority. I haven't been wasting it the last 2 weeks. And I'm gonna go ahead and use it up on this guy. I
didn't expect that.
In the heart of the bye weeks, these next 4 weeks is the heart of the bye weeks. Week 10 is the killer one.
All right.
Week 10, there's about 7 teams on bye, or 6, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that it's valuable right now. I might play him one time out of those 4 weeks, right? But this is going to be a starting guy. The Cardinals offense we've seen, be serviceable, right? I don't want to say they're the greatest thing, but they're also not the New York Giants offense. Connor's been good. Hollywood Brown's been good.
Hollywood Brown has been excellent.
Yeah, Zach Ertz has been playable and startable in certain leagues. So, I'm going to run with it. I'm going to waste my waiver priority, and I'm going to pick up De Mercado is the way it's said. All right, boys? We're Rasa here.
Dude, I'm on this train too, man. I would rather have him than the running back that we just talked about before in Spears. I would actually rather have him than even like a Jalen Warren type over there in Pittsburgh, even though Najee has been non-existent, just because of the volume factor. And in fantasy, 2 things for me are consistency and volume, and he's the volume's going to be there, guys. I mean, let's just call it what it is. He's already projected at 10 points, almost 11. Roland made a great point saying that even ESPN knows that he's going to be involved in the offense, which he clearly is, and at less than 1% owned in all the leagues, he is clearly available.
He'll be over 50% by next week's episode for sure as a clear-cut starter.
1,000%. The only thing left to ask yourself is, in fab leagues, how much do you want to spend on this guy? It sounds like you're probably spending a decent amount if Ben is saying that in his non-fab league he's going to use his number 1 overall waiver wire pick for him.
Yeah, I think
and he's shown that he's a talented guy too in college. I mean, you're not going and getting the third string running back just because he's the RB1 now. This is a talented dude.
I don't think that you're going, Jacoby Ford, if that's his name, or just Ford from Jacoby Ford, which is half of your fab. I don't think you're even going Kyron Williams. Personally.
Kyron Williams is half of your fab too.
I thought he was like 50. Okay, but 50 out of 100. So yeah, I think that he's like 20 to 30 range, and that's if you plan on plugging him in for sure. But that's what he's going to go for. There is other options I'll mention, like Deontay Foreman with Roshan Johnson in concussion protocol, and Herbert out. I think that Foreman's another good option and probably a cheaper option. But for him, I think you're going to have to spend like between 20 and 30.
Yeah, that's right where I was going to land. I thought about a third of your fab, maybe 30%. It's probably what it's going to need to get this guy, because and you got to keep in mind too, like when you're bidding out here, there's other teams that you're bidding against. So there might be a team that's hungrier than you. So it comes down to like, how bad do you want it, right? Like if there's a team out there that really needs him, they might go out there
for that team, right?
Yeah, they might go out there and spend the 51% or 52% to make sure that they get it, and they're not even playing that game. Because I think I'm good. I mean, we talked about it earlier. I lost Achan, but Achan was more of like a nice to have in most of my situations because I drafted him so late. So him performing was like, oh wow, let me put this guy in. He's hurt. It's a bummer, but yeah. So I don't know. Anything else here on the waiver wire?
No, that's it, man. I'm pretty good. It wasn't a huge waiver wire this week. Usually we have about 5 guys up here, but hey, sometimes it's not going to be that way. And you can pick up waiver guys that you're going to start, or like Ben said, you can pick up waiver wire guys that you're going to cuff. But that's it for the waiver wires. Let's get into the survivor pool, because somebody actually did get eliminated this week. We had 1 elimination in the survivor pool, meaning there's 13 players left. That player did pick the Washington Commanders, just to be completely transparent. So they're out. 13 people left, $760 pot. If your name is up here on the list, congratulations, you've made it. And we're not going to say who we picked just yet. We'll probably save that for the Sunday show.
Yeah. But I mean, as we did last week, there's a couple names already that pop out, that people will probably gravitate to this week. Some pretty large spreads. Whoever's playing the Giants this week, whoever's playing the Panthers this week, the Dolphins are. So those teams probably going to have a lot of action on them. Any other teams that have popped out to you guys as you've looked through the list, or if you haven't started looking, no worries?
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't looked at the slate, man. So stay tuned for Sunday. So because we're gonna let you know who our picks are. Sunday mornings between 10 and 10:30. If you guys are watching this for the first time, we do have a second show on Sunday. So join us on Sunday. We're live too, baby. Yeah. Boy, what you got before we go?
No, nothing. That's it for the wire. I'll just touch a little bit on tight end. I mean, if Logan Thomas is still out there, he's still out there in some of my leagues. But he had a huge week, I know Ron called him out. And then Musgrave is coming back, right?
Musgrave, yeah. He had a good game last night.
Yeah, he just played last night. If he would have gotten to the end zone, he easily would have hit about, I think, 15 points, maybe 16 points.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's the Denver tight end that I'm talking about. Is it
Dulcich?
Dulcich. Yeah.
Dulcich. He's coming back. I know people were pretty high on him, coming into the season. And the Broncos offense has been putting up points. It's kind of been that they haven't been able to stop anybody. So
that defense is atrocious. Yeah, but let's see. I'm interested to see how the two guys that have the path to starter roles do this week. KJ Osborne and Amari DeMarcado. I want to see how those two guys do this week.
Another name at running back that may be out there. I know maybe that he got dropped because I picked him up and dropped him. Justice Hill. Justice Hill got into the end zone.
He's actually available for me.
For the Ravens, he's available in some leagues. I think that he's kind of got the nod over Gus Edwards. We know that, the starter's out for the year, Dobbins. So I think Justice Hill is also a guy that can help people out at running back if he's available.
23% rostered on ESPN, so he is still available out there. Gus Edwards had his opportunity. I think he threw up a dud last week, man.
Yeah, Justice
and Lamar can't rush. Lamar can't do everything on himself rushing wise.
That's it. That's all I got.
That's it. All right, boys. See y'all later. Thanks for joining. Catch us on Sunday morning for our Sunday morning pregame. Peace.